blade that isn't as round comes more to the edge, but you try all the different stuff, different ways, and come up with your preference, because what you feel comfortable with is what you're going to do the best job with. Same with any aspect of taxidermy that any of us are trying to train you. You pick and choose the ways you want to do stuff that feels best to you. Your style. As you keep pressure on this, you can see where you need to cut. Now you can use a blunt screwdriver instead of this bar I have. If I was doing this out in the woods, I'd probably just find a stick to shove up in there to push on, something with a blunt edge. You know, you can try a lot of different things. I mean, I wouldn't carry this piece of rod out in the woods because it's just that much more weight to carry. I've actually got little piranha scalpel knives that I can throw blades on that fold up for carrying, so that's what I would have in my hunting bag if I was out in the woods. These little blades are easy to carry. In all honesty, when it comes to skinning something, if there was only one tool I had, I'd take the scalpel and 20 blades and I could skin this complete bear from start to finish. This bear's already got dry tips on this ear. He's been in the freezer a little long without being protected the way it feels. But we're gonna get him. He's all the way to the edge. There's the second ear turned. Now we're going to move to the nose and the lips. We're going to start around the nose a little bit. Trimming, we're going to cut right down the center of that nose where it came off the skull. Very carefully cutting all the way to the pad without trimming them nostrils off. So you have to practice that too. But you can see the center, you can stay in between the two sets of nostrils. Get down to the skull, get that opened up so that the salt will get down in there when you go to salt it. There's the nose opened up. I'm just going to trim a little bit of that inside nasal passage off. I don't need that much from coming back from the tannery when it comes back. I probably leave a ½ inch is all. I go through a couple scalpel blades doing this job. I'd rather work with a sharp one. They're only less than $1/4 a piece, as long as you buy them right. But now I'm going to start at the corner of the mouth where the skin is. You can see what the lip looks like right now. We're going to split between these two deals. Just kind of think of it as filleting a steak. You're taking that steak and you're cutting down the center till you actually have two sides that are attached by a thin membrane at the bottom. That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to turn these lips just like we would butterfly a steak. I usually start at the back corner of one side of the mouth, and I'll just work my way all the way through and around the complete lip area. Always got my finger, my thumb, something underneath, right at the point where I'm headed towards. That way I can feel when I'm getting close. I've learned how to feel where my scalpel is and how thick this is yet. I'm probably for the most part working a 1/2 inch at a time here. And I'll work it towards the edge, then I'll come back and I'll go one more time. Once it starts opening up, it's getting that first split so it starts splitting down. Once it starts, then you can really, a lot easier feel where you're going, but it's getting that first part of it away from the skin so that you've actually got 2 pieces in your hand instead of 1. For the most part, oops, little nick. For the most part, yeah. I make them nicks just so I can keep practice sewing. It's actually my favorite thing to do is sew. Hope you heard the sarcasm in that. There, we've got the lips open up. You've seen what they look like before, now you're going to see something totally different. See how them lips are opened up? They're just laid wide open. The nose is laid wide open for you. And as I said, we'll make sure we got no chunks of cartilage or anything on the skin, because especially that cartilage will keep the salt from penetrating. If the salt doesn't penetrate that hydrite, you won't get a good cure and you'll get a slip spot there. So the eyes, I'm just going to go around the eyes pretty much same as the lips. I ain't going to go all the way to the edges now, I do that more later, but I want to thin them out enough so the salt can get in. So these real thick spots I'm just trimming down, taking it off, or at least opening it up. Once you do a few, you'll get what I'm saying. I just thinned a bunch. I just moved all that skin from there to there to open that eye up a little so I get good salt penetration. If you're going to tan these yourselves, some people would trim everything right now and so it's ready when they go. It all depends on your situation. Mine is skinning time of the year. I'm usually busy. I want to get skin in the salt as fast as I can so I can go on to the next project and keep everything fresh. You know, it all depends on how busy you are and what your schedule for that day shows, but that's the head ready to be salted. Now we're going to move on to the paws. We'll lay the paw down. There's a lot of different ways to do these paws. My way is I start right at this pad behind the toes. I go through the pad. And usually if they've skinned down, I'll go right to where they've skinned to. Otherwise I try to stay down the center of the leg. But I'm just going to go through, I go through the center of the pad instead of opening the pad up all the way around. I'd rather sew that pad back by the center and make one short fix than to go all the way around that pad. Some people go around the pad and take it all off that way. My bigger bears, when they come in, that's usually how they're cut because that's the only way they can get stuff out. Some people, if they're salting stuff, but that's their way of doing it. This foot's still somewhat froze, but this hide needs to get in the salt, so I got to work it this way. I'm just kind of skinning this foot back, same as I would anything else. I'm just completely going down over the foot till we get down to the paws. Scalpel, knife, whatever you feel comfortable with here. actually going to remove these toe bones all the way down to right behind the claw this morning, because when you go to mount it, you don't want them toe bones in there. They'll just cause problems on the mount for the mounting procedure. They'll cause problems in the tanning procedure. So we have to skin us down as far as we can on these toes at this point. We at least want to get 1/2 to 3/4 inch below these knuckles. And since we're in the shop, I'll show you the easy way to take them bones out of the toes. But you still have to get down at least 1/2 inch below these knuckles so we can get them put in the vise. Then I just take my knife. You can take a side cutters if you want, but I'll use a knife and I'll cut through the joints. Learn to take them joints off with a knife. You make your job a whole lot easier when you learn how these joints work. But it's a practice deal. When I'm caping deer off the head or anything, I've taught myself how to cut through them joints and cut them tendons so that they all come off. Right now you have 5 individual toes, because you seen I went through them all with my knife to open them up. That way they're individual, so when we go to our vise and pull the toes, we can pull them out. We've now got all of our toes opened up. I clamped the toe bone, that's why we need that 1/2 inch in the vise. I keep my hands dry again with borax. And I just work down until I get to that last joint. Now I've done enough, I know where it's at. You're gonna have to feel it out a few times, but right there is that last joint. We've got her completely out. We do that with all 20 toes on the bear. Just keep repeating that same step. I like the vise because I can keep pressure on it. If I was out in the open, I'd have to find another way to keep pressure, hopefully with a Leatherman and a second person, or you just have to figure out a way to do it if you're out in the woods. I've never had to do one in the woods, so I know with the pliers, I've done them with the pliers before, and it works. But there's what your toe looks like, completely turned inside out. That's the back of the claw right there. If you ever find a claw to study, you would find that. But here again is why you have to learn how to take stuff off at the joints, because these toes are all being taken right off at that last joint. I'll just repeat that on all 4 feet. Then we'll turn them back inside right and salt them when we get to the salt. At this point, we've got all the toes removed, the head turned. We're ready to flesh this thing. I use a fleshing beam now. For the first 20 years of business, I did it with a knife, just laid it out on the table and took all that excess fat and meat off with a knife. I bought a fleshing beam, taught myself how to use it with a draw knife.